Les, if you start snoring, I'm going to have Bob poke you.
I was not splashing. I start doing stuff like this, trying to keep myself awake, pulling hair on my arms.
We'll try to get through it quickly. I'm telling you, I want to go to Ripples. We tried to go there the other
It's
day.
very warm outside, and I'm straight from work,
Aw. We'll try to get through
I'm
it.
right here with you. I listen to every word you said.
Bless you. All right, well, we're going to change the subject. What I've given you is a little article that'll kind of help you. Just read it on your own time at home. What I want you to understand is just a follow-up to what I just shared. Not everybody, as Pastor Randy and I were talking, not everybody comes from a faith tradition where they understand and believe that the Lord still heals today. What I'm going to be addressing tomorrow is how to keep your beliefs and support people that believe differently than you do. Because at this table, we've got a whole bunch of different faith traditions. We all could probably say we're Christians, but we probably have a little different flavor. There's French vanilla, there's vanilla bean, there's old-fashioned vanilla, but they're all vanilla. You follow? So what I kind of want to encourage you to do is to be able to have some basic tools to support whoever you run across based on your relationship with the Lord. It all comes from your relationship with the Lord, okay? Now, when I say that, and we're going to go forward, I do want to just tie up some loose ends with this thing. What healthcare is moving into, and you're going to run into this in different areas of the community, is the rest of the world has what we call a majority or 2/3 worldview, where they treat, in healthcare, they treat body, soul, and spirit as one. You don't go to the doctor and just get your temperature, pulse, and respirations. You also get questions about other areas of your life. And in America, we tend to compartmentalize. And we're seeing there's a rise in non-Christian methods of dealing with the soul and the spirit that are coming into healthcare. What I want you to understand is how people from a Christian worldview can deal with body, soul, and spirit issues. And it is about, and you'll notice the same title, Shalom and Irene, it is about peace in the entire man. So go ahead and peek at that at home. Use it to light your wood stove when you're done with it, whatever it is that you need to do. But I thought it was just we've studied this extensively, and what I'm trying to do is keep it short for you guys, okay? And so that's just something for you to be aware of. So when we go into a room in long-term care or in the hospital, we're going to meet an individual. We're going to meet somebody who's probably been around for a while. We'll meet children, but I'm going to give you a slice of somebody's life to give you an idea and an understanding of where they're coming from, and then some basic tools for you guys. Okay? So, meet Mabel. Mabel is having a bad day. Mabel's over here at the facility, and you come in and you find her, and she's got that particular look on her face, and you're going, oh boy. Alrighty then, how's this gonna go? Okay? Mabel is right about 80-ish. She's lived 27,375 days so far, and you are meeting her on today 376. She has had better days. She doesn't remember herself looking like that. She remembers herself with her long, flowing, beautiful red hair that she had that matched and went with her green prom gown so beautifully. And she's remembering all of her other days in her life, and this is not her favorite day at all. And she's kind of trying to figure out, how did I get here? So, all those days that she has lived have contributed to her way of thinking. And I want to give you a couple of vocabulary words. You don't have to remember them, but I'm going to use them for sake of being able to shore things up here for us. First one is worldview. She has a worldview. She views the world based on her experiences, and worldview means a particular philosophy of life or conception of the world. I have a philosophy of life or conception of the world based on my experiences. A paradigm is a model or pattern for something that may be copied. So my paradigm for how to fill up my water bottle is my model that may be copied is I go up to my fridge and I know that my fridge in the house that we just built this past year is this newfangled thing that pees all over the floor every time you push the button. And that has become my paradigm for how to fill up my water bottle. And we all know at our house we have to mop it up every time we fill up this stupid water bottle. But that's the model, okay? A whole bunch of models, a whole bunch of paradigms is a theory or group of ideas about how something should be done. Because when you've done it a certain way, all those years, all those 27,000 some other other days, that becomes your accepted way of doing it. And you'll notice the older we get, the more set in our ways we are, the more we think that is the way to do it. And we think that about what we believe as far as whether or not people can be healed today. We think that about whether or not we should have even a spiritual person come to us in a health care facility. Some people's paradigms have equal to worldview that say, you don't belong here. I should have a room that I'm not bothered by these chaplains. Some people have paradigms about a whole bunch of different things. It's a collection of life experiences that makes you think a certain way, okay? Your particular paradigm, Mabel has hers, and she has her right to have hers. And we are going to support whatever hers is. On a day when you walk in and you find her looking like that, it doesn't look like it's going to be the easiest thing in the world to do. It looks like she's going to chew you out no matter what. So, while we don't have a right to change Mabel's paradigm or worldview, we may encounter her on a day where life and death just got very real, and she's more open to a change than she's ever been. We may encounter that she has been the organist at the First United whatever church for a bajillion years, and that's her paradigm, and she has a relationship with the Lord. But whatever it is, the very first thing we're going to do is recognize and honor her for what she has already as her worldview. And she's fighting a battle we don't know anything about. She has a whole bunch of variables, a whole bunch of irons in the fire, and the reason she's got that look on her face could be medication, but it's probably a whole bunch of different things. A lot of times when people end up in the hospital and in long-term care, they still have loose ends in their life that they never thought they were going to have to tie up. They've never cleaned out their house. They've never decided who gets the house. Oh my gosh, now my kids are in there and I never wanted them to see my whatever. And they've got all sorts of family issues that all bubble to the surface they never realized they were going to have to deal with. They had a whole bunch of independence. We spend our whole life from when we're very little learning to be responsible for ourselves and independent, and we get older and we enjoy that independence. We work and maintain and we work and maintain, and then we reach this place in life. And our true identity is best described as that worldview without hindrances, in peace, without anybody or anything inflicting on it. And you're going to be your truest self when you can be comfortable, when you can just be free of the need to deal with a whole bunch of different things going on in your life. However, we're going to deal with people who are dealing with some stress. And so their stress is going to cause them a couple different psychological models that we're going to go through. And I'm just going to touch on these in a way that hopefully you'll understand why they are the way they are. When we lose our independence because we have a sudden illness or injury or a long-term illness that has gotten to a certain point where we lose our independence, we've lost some control over our lives. And these two other pieces come into play, fear and shame. They all tend to work together. When you run into this in long-term care and in the hospital, you'll see it manifest in ways that may look weird. You guys that have been doing this for a while, you've already seen a lot of this. You've seen Mabel hide candy in her room, not want to answer questions. She doesn't want to tell the doctor that she just fell out of bed again. She doesn't want to have that piece of cornbread on her tray. She hates that cornbread and they keep sending it to her, and she can't control that part of her life. All her life she was the cook. She controlled every meal that went on in that house, and now all of a sudden they won't even listen about a simple little thing about taking a piece of cornbread, and she is flippin' mad about that cornbread, and every single time it comes she has absolute meltdown. And you go in to see her, and you think it's going to be a nice quiet time, and you find that Mabel that you've seen maybe for the past couple months, and she's been, if we put her in a different scenario, maybe she's been pretty placid, and you happen to catch it on day number 4 of that cornbread showing up, and that's something that she can't control. And now she's flipping. She's angry, and she's not up for a visit, and we have to be okay with that. There's shame involved when you lose independence. It's not comfortable having somebody take care of your basic needs, having somebody take care of your body in ways that you've always taken care of it. We who can feed ourselves, who can toilet ourselves, who can mobilize around with our feet without having to have help, we are very spoiled. I think I learned the most in healthcare on the days where we had in-services where we had to Hoyer one another, and I had to be in the Hoyer. When you lose that independence, when you've had to have a surgery or something like that, it makes you look at things differently. So you'll see people kind of go through these different stressors, these different ways of not really dealing with things in a normal way. This isn't the same Mabel you would have run into at McGowan's a few years ago. Does it mean she has dementia? Not necessarily. That's a different process. Just because she's acting weird, we don't get to put a label on her. And maybe coming at a different time would help, but we have to understand when we lose that independence, there's the death of the dream of the independence goes, and we grieve the loss of that. This little bugger here is the stages of grief and loss, and it was originally referred to as the Kubler-Ross model, and it was found to be the stages that a person went through when they were diagnosed with a terminal illness. What they have found since then is that these same stages are gone through not just by the individual, but by their family members. And it's not just when you are diagnosed with a fatal illness. These are the things you go through when your family member dies. These are the things you go through when you go through a major loss, if you have a divorce, if you have a late teens, early 20s, young adult child who suddenly goes off into left field, you'll go through these same stages. If you have any major loss in life, you will go through a lot of these, and they're not systematic. The misnomer is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, and you think that it's a whole bunch of stages you're just going to work through and then you're going to be done. It's not boot camp. Stages of grief on paper is here. Most people's experience looks a lot more like this. So one day they're over here in disorganization and they can't find things, and you'll see a lot of that when people are very stressed. They're in a different place. They're not comfortable there. They're thinking of things. I know I just put it down. I know I just. Well, they might have, but it's not where they can find it. And they may be here one day and they may be over here another day. They're starting to develop new strengths and new patterns. Maybe they're getting used to going down for a certain activity at a certain day, and they're starting to work into that. And then something happens, and we don't know what it is, but all of a sudden they're having emotional outbursts and anger again. And you're thinking, well, now wait a minute, they were doing so good. What happened? Well, maybe they have a son who died, and it was the anniversary of that date, and that pushed them back over here. Or maybe they went to eat their lunch, and the doctor just put them on a different diet, and they didn't get something that they really were looking forward to. We don't know. A lot of times we don't know, and we have to kind of be okay with the I don't know. But we have to also know that people and their family members, not just the patients, but their family members will be going through these things. This is particularly difficult when you deal with family members with hospice patients and with patients in trauma, because you'll have family members who are literally all over the map. And when you come in to sit with people who have just had a loved one come into the emergency room, they could be anywhere on the spectrum, and a lot of times they flip-flop all over back and forth. And we're going to learn how to try to calm them down tomorrow. Tonight I want to give you the basics. Tomorrow we're going to unpack it a little bit more, okay? So, denial is a stage of grief and loss. It comes right after shock on the scale, but understand, people flop all around in here. So, when you have people who are family members who are in denial, and you have maybe end of life care, someone's getting to the point where they can't eat anymore. It's a very common part of the end of life. The last couple days, the body starts to get more in tune with the spiritual world than it does with the physical. Eating is not something the person can do. They lose the capacity to swallow. You literally will choke them and kill them if you try to feed them. You'll see family members in denial come in and literally try to shovel food down them. Well, come on, Mom, you just did it 2 days ago. Come on, Mom. Come on, Mom. If something happens, we'll unpack how to deal with that a little bit more tomorrow, but suffice it to say, you're going to see people who are kind of all over the map. It doesn't mean that they're nuts. It doesn't mean that they have a diagnosable mental illness or something like that, but they're going through the stages of grief and loss. People will act out in defensive ways because they don't want to lose any more independence, because they don't want you to know that they feel like they're not the same person that they used to be. Sometimes we do see tantrums, so people get very upset. In family members' cases, we hopefully can support them and calm them down. In the patient's case, we're going to try our best to do that, but understand they're not mad at you. They're mad at the situation. And if we can get that very simple truth, we're good. They're not mad at you. They're mad at the situation. There is definitely a fear of death for most people, even people who have walked with the Lord for a number of years. It's unknown. It's, gosh, I still had 14,000 things I wanted to do. It's, I thought my faith was stronger. It's, I get to that place and then, oh, it's real. When it becomes real, all of the senses get heightened. The person gets prickly. And you will see people trying to get their affairs in order. I don't know how you've approached this, but my thought is it is not our responsibility as chaplains to help people. And I've had, even as an aide, I've had patients where I've gone in and mom's trying to figure out things back at the house that she can't control anymore. We can't, that's not the chaplain's place. We're there to love on you and pray for you, read scripture over you, and do things like that. We're not the go-between. Sometimes that role we just want to solidify. You don't need to get in there. Okay?
There is a social services person at the hospital who does help families with those kind of things.
Yeah.
Ours is a spiritual responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, so we will refer. If it's a problem that doesn't involve us, we will refer. Now, I want to talk to you a minute about problems that don't involve us. Our role is spiritual. You go in to visit somebody and they say, I want a glass of water. I want a glass of water. These girls won't bring me a glass of water. Don't do it. And I know it's very scriptural. Whoever brings a cup of cold water in my name. Well, people can have dietary guidelines. They may be on dialysis and they can only have a certain amount of fluids per day. They might need something to thicken their drinks. They might be on different dietary guidelines, even something as simple as a glass of water. Don't do it. No food or drink. And you can thank the person. Thank you for trusting me with your needs. I'll go get your nurse. That's all you got to do. We're always going to refer anything that's not absolutely spiritual. Hey, you need help figuring out things at home? Thanks so much for entrusting that to me. And I appreciate that you've got those needs and I want to help you with that. Let me see if I can scare up a social worker for you. And if you don't know the person, you guys that have been here for a while, obviously I'm new. I don't know who you do and don't know. So I'm going to tell you, if you don't know who to call me. Because I've had everybody crawling out of the woodwork saying, hi, I'm the so-and-so. So I'm compiling a list. So that's one of the reasons I gave you that card, okay? Anything with practical helps like that, where maybe if you were at home and you were a part of Randy's church and you said, hey, I need help with so-and-so, such and such, it might not seem out of the realm of possibilities. Hey, I'm moving next week. Is there anybody, or can you scare up Skeeter and Aaron to help? But we don't realize when we make the transition into living in a facility, now things are more compartmentalized. So I just want to clarify that one. As we slip and slide around these stages and we start to lash out, we sometimes act in ways that are less than lovely, and we don't necessarily want to be reminded of that. When we grieve the stages of the loss of a loved one, whether they're still alive or they've passed on, whether we grieve the loss of our independence, it all looks the same. And the things that we can do, I want to give you some basic tools for your toolbox. And first one is love. Love is a commitment to honor and love, care for the person, look for their best interest, no matter what. Okay? Second one is honor. Honor is, I'm going to bow down to lift others up. Even if you're having the very worst day, even if you are acting out and you're bellowing down the hall, nurse, 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 and I can't stand that sound, I'm going to honor you. The reason we honor everybody, no matter what their behavior is that honor isn't based on their behavior. Honor is based on the fact that your value as a human being was the price that Jesus paid for you on the cross. And so I can always honor that as being your value. Okay? The value of something is what you would pay for it. And that's what Jesus paid for us. When Father sent Jesus, he sent Jesus for the world, not just the church. So that's the value of every single human being. So we honor based on that value. Self-control. That's one of the fruits of the Spirit. You all have the Holy Spirit within you. I don't respond to you by your behavior, because one of the things I can do is I can control myself, even if you can't control yourself. And if that means I control myself by leaving the room because your behavior is such that I can't handle it, or I need to go get your nurse, your aide, or whatever, somebody else to help you, I can still do that in an honoring way. I will never, ever, ever raise my voice back to the person, get into a tiff with them. If they are starting a theological debate with you, if those questions of the ends of life have started to come up and they're starting a debate with you, you're not there to debate. You're there to honor. You're there to lift them up. So what you can do is ask some drawing questions. Well, what do you believe the scripture says about that? What have you learned throughout your life? Would you share with me what you have experienced? Try to draw out of them, try to put it back on them. So that's a way of honoring them. That's honoring what they believe, not putting on them what we believe. Okay? Responsibility. You can face any situation and make powerful choices that are consistent with your goal as the chaplain, which is to support people and restore shalom, restore peace. Trust. Another tool. We display our trustworthiness regardless of theirs. Again, our behavior isn't based on or dependent upon the patient's behavior. And a lot of times when people are stuck in that shame, fear, control model, they don't trust anybody. You'll find that with patients who have been placed in long-term care, they sometimes have lost trust of most people. Sometimes people who have come to the hospital, you'll find that, and it takes a while to establish trust, but you can act in a way that's trustworthy and act in a way that demonstrates your trust of them, regardless of if they trust you. Faith is another tool that we can use. We have a deep God-created need for intimacy, love, and comfort, and so we can give that love and that comfort to them. And hear this one. If we look to things that were not designed to meet these needs, and we elevate them above everything else, we've made them idols, and the result is always bondage and destruction. It's only when we place God at the center that we can access the comfort, peace, safety, joy, and the pleasure that truly meets our deepest needs. We need to remember this for ourselves, focus on our relationship with the Lord, and realize also that we're going to run into people who maybe have had other things in that God-shaped hole in their heart, and those things that might have just been ripped away from them, so they may be freaking out. We may run across somebody who was an alcoholic, and that's an easy one to look at. Maybe we can run across somebody who had, something that's easy for us to see that they idolized. Maybe they had a huge collection of something and they were all into that huge collection of something. But a lot of times it's the ones that we don't readily see. Maybe they idolized living at home on a farm, a ranch, their own piece of property, and that was what their life was all about. They had no real relationship with the Lord. They really were so focused. They might have gone to church their whole life, but they might have been so focused on their flower bed, their house, their car, their wife, their whatever, and it's something that they can't access, and you'll find that that's when people are freaking out. I had one guy I took care of. He had a cobblestone house. It was a historical home. He loved his house. He was a farmer, and he had continued farming for many years after having a tractor accident and having a leg amputated. Continued to climb up on the equipment, continued to do everything himself, and he was very admirable. It was wonderful. But when he finally got to that place in life where he had to be placed in long-term care, we found out real quick, all he did was freak out about his cobblestone house and what was going to happen to his cobblestone house and who was going to take care of his cobblestone house, and that's all you heard about was the cobblestone house. You might hear some things like that. Don't try to change the person. Remember those tools: love, honor, respect, control yourself. You maintain your own boundaries. You be trustworthy. You have your faith in God, and your vision is your other tool. We have a vision for who we are and where we're supposed to be going in life as individuals. And remember that these people had a vision too. And usually your vision doesn't include an unexpected illness or injury. So when you run up against that bump in the road, people are a little freaking out. Our job is to bring the peace. Okay? Unconditional acceptance. We accept the person, warts and all. They usually don't look like Mabel did in that picture there. We usually find them looking all put together and everything if they're out in public, and they would never usually come out in public with a gown that only, it's split in the back. They normally would never come out in a public, you know, with the hair, the way that they can get it done over in long-term care or in the hospital. They would never come out in public in their jammies or their comfy clothes. So you may run into people that have a little bit of, they're hesitant, they're shy. It just takes a little while to get people to know that you accept them, warts and all. Just be patient, okay? Peace, hope, and joy are the result of consistently getting those tools right over time, okay? The honor, the unconditional acceptance, the vision, all those tools, trust, trustworthiness, those tools used with self-control, okay, over a period of time will bring peace, hope, and joy. And remember, you have to have grace with yourself and with the people. Remember, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth to be used accordingly. And remember that folks in healthcare settings are a little busy. And so if the person is in the hospital room by themselves, if they're in the long-term care facility room by themselves, the greatest gift you can give them is your ears most of the time. And as long as you're open to just being a person to come in and listen and be willing to not be offended, that unconditional acceptance, whatever it is they share with you, let her rip. That's okay. I'm just here to support you. I'm going to unpack tomorrow a little bit more about supporting people who believe a little bit differently than we do. And I'm going to unpack a little bit more about what nuts and bolts things we might run into. But I'm done. I am going to hope that you're going to read this, because this will give you a little bit better understanding of some things that I don't want to ramble on about. And I'm going to bring in a form tomorrow to have you fill out just a very simple, what are you honestly available for? And again, your relationship with the Lord and your family comes first. I don't want to burn anybody out. We're trusting for more to come, and we're going to do the best we can with what